Welcome to Straight Lines. I'm Tim Neiman. This is where life lessons meet leadership, where business gets a front row seat, and where you will get a blueprint for success. Whether you're managing a team, building a brand, or just trying to lead yourself better, you are in the right place. Because here on Straight Lines, we believe the shortest distance between purpose and progress is truth, clarity, and action. Straight Lines brought to you by Baseball Blue Book. Baseball Blue Book has been in the game's trusted directory since 1909. And now it's where businesses connect directly with players, parents, and coaches. Create a profile, promote your services, and join the community. If your business wants to stand out, it's time to get in the book. Download Baseball Blue Book today from Apple and Google Play. I am stoked to have the iconic, if you will, Keith, I know, the iconic Keith Madison with us today on Straight Lines. Most of you know Keith from his days at the University of Kentucky, where he was hired at the tender age of 26 back in 1976, and 25 years later, retired from the Wildcats, ran up a bunch of wins, 737 of them, had 17 guys play in Major League Baseball, which is pretty incredible. Members of a bunch of Hall of Fames, Kentucky high school baseball coaches, ABCA, University of Kentucky, and plus he's a Hall of Fame gentleman, without a doubt. A couple other things Keith is now doing. He is with SCORE International, Christian mission organization, helps hundreds of baseball players and coaches on trips to the Dominican Republic, which I've had a fortune enough to take my club there 3 different times. And he's also the publisher of baseball magazine Inside Pitch, official magazine of the American Baseball Coaches Association. My friend Keith, thank you so much today. It's a real honor and a pleasure to have you with me.
Well, Tim, it's a pleasure to be on with you, and I've listened to some of your other podcasts, and I've enjoyed them thoroughly. So hopefully I can keep up with the guys you've had in the past.
I'm sure that's not going to be a problem. And thank you for those kind words. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. Second career, sort of, it's the old saying, Keith, 4 things in your life. And I wasn't smart enough to come up with any of these, but sort of live by them. Something to do, something to look forward to, something to believe in, and somebody to love. And I think all 4 of those things are in place, as they are with you. And I think if one of those goes away, we need to fix it pretty quickly. So,
right.
You're going to be a great guest today. I'm really excited. Let's just jump right into the coaching part of it, Keith. What made you coach? What was there? 26 years old. I took over DeSales University. I was 30, was 3 years pitching coach at a Division II school prior, and it was in my blood. How about for you?
Well, for me, I think baseball was in my blood. It was definitely the love of the game that drew me into coaching, because I grew up on a small farm in South Central Kentucky, and all I ever wanted to do was play sports. And excuse me, I had an opportunity to play baseball, and played Little League ball, just like most other people my age, and Little League Babe Ruth, high school baseball, then American Legion baseball. And then I was blessed to have the opportunity to play in the Expos organization at an early age, and then 3 years in the Reds organization during the Big Red Machine years. So when it just so happened that my baseball career ended at about the same time that I was graduating from college. I had a year left to go in college because I was going during the off season of my minor league career. So, I graduated from school, and I majored in geography, and I loved it. I've always been a map freak. I love maps. I just love reading about cultures and places. I've always been that way, but when it got right down to it, I thought, what am I going to do? And I just felt like I know more about baseball than anything else. and I love baseball. So why not try to stay in baseball? So my cousin was teaching down in Polk County, Florida, Winter Haven, Lakeland, Lake Wales, that area. And that's a big school system. And he said, hey, I had just gotten married. He said, why don't you and Sharon come down and get teaching jobs here in Polk County? And so we threw our applications in and got jobs down there. And my first year, Tim, I was an assistant basketball coach, assistant varsity basketball coach, and assistant varsity baseball coach. And I loved it. And I really needed to be, even though I'd played some, 5 years of minor league baseball, I didn't know how to coach. So it was great for me to be an assistant because I didn't know a whole lot about, managing a team. So that was a great lesson for me and a great learning experience. And then the second year at Lake Wales High School, I was the head baseball coach and didn't coach basketball. And I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with coaching young players. And I couldn't articulate it at the time, but I really fell in love with coaching players and not just the game. I talk about this a lot. It's not enough just to love baseball. You have to love the players who play the game. And so that's what I discovered early in my career. And these guys, they responded to me because I was a young coach and we had fun and we won some games. And, they would hang around after practice for extra work and they would try to get me to go fishing with them and all those things. And it was just a blast. And then the guy that I'd worked for as an assistant coach, he had played for the legendary Ron Polk at Georgia Southern when Ron first started his Division I career. And so he said, hey, my college coach he's at Mississippi State University now, and I think you'd be a good candidate to be a graduate assistant. You could get your master's degree and see if you want to coach college baseball. So he introduced me to Coach Polk, and I met him at the first ever ABCA convention that I attended down in Miami, Florida. And we hit it off, and he invited me to come up to be a graduate assistant and threw me right in the fire. He let me have the pitching staff because Mark Johnson, another legendary coach who ended up at Texas A&M, he was Coach Polk's top assistant. Both of those guys were hitting guys. They didn't want to deal with the pitcher, so they let me do it, and I really love that aspect of it as well. And then lo and behold, at 26 years old, the Kentucky job came open, and I don't think anybody else wanted the job, so I got it because it was not an attractive baseball coaching position at that time. It was really part-time pay, and the facilities weren't very good. But what a great opportunity for me to coach at the University of Kentucky in my home state as a 26-year-old. So I really jumped on that, and I didn't care about the money. I didn't care about the facilities. I just wanted to have my own team in the Southeastern Conference, and I knew those other things would come. So
I think we all started that way, Keith. It's like, what am I doing? What are we looking at here? But you can either hang in or you dig in, which is what people do. We dig in, and here you are today, and thankfully and gratefully here I am today after 36 years as a head coach and 3 as an assistant coach, and it's all those same things. And by the way, I hope they bring the Expos back. I love the Expos. I mean, I gotta have them back.
Yeah, I still love that logo and love the uniforms they wore.
Colors and maybe John Bacabella can be the third base coach. There's a name for you. I know you've mentioned Coach Polk and Mark Johnson. I mean, do you have anybody, and we've all had mentors, anybody stick out for you specifically that had the major impact on you? I'm guessing might have been Polk, but anybody that you might have?
Actually, both of those guys, Tim, they were just, Mark Johnson went on to become a Hall of Fame coach and had a tremendous career at Texas A&M and Stephen F. Austin. But they were both different, and I was able to observe and learn from both of those guys. Ron Polk and I know you've heard millions of stories about him, but he was the most organized individual I had ever been around in my life. He was so detail oriented, and I needed that. By nature, I'm not a detail oriented person. So I needed that to show me the value of it. Mark Johnson both had incredible baseball knowledge. Mark had, they both had great character. And so, I'm a young guy sort of feeling my way, and to be able to see those two guys as role models was outstanding. So I learned a lot about the game, and I learned a lot about how to coach players who play the game, and also learned about how a coach carries himself. It's I know you played for coaches that carried themselves like champions, and they just it was almost like you didn't have any choice but to respect them because they earned it. And then you may have played for another coach or two. I know I did that really didn't have that, and I didn't respect them. Not just because of their knowledge, but because of the way they treated people. And so I was able to learn from two of the best, and hopefully I carried some of a little bit of that with me to the University of Kentucky.
And I'm sure you did. And I'm sure you ran the bases a little bit at Kentucky with Ron Polk. I mean, just ahead of his time.
He would spend 2 weeks just on leads at first base. It was
and it paid off. I think all successful programs are able to run the bases well. I think it's sometimes overlooked. And you mentioned too the coaches that you like and respect, and maybe one or two, maybe not. I think it's always critical to sometimes, and it's an important piece of the growth process where you learn what not to do. And I think if you're smart enough and able to recognize that, that too is a way to grow. And I kind of emphasize that with young people. And, I think that's an important part of it all. So we're all part of this. And I think we went to the World Series in 2003. And it was great. We had some success in spite of me. I own all the losses. The kids won the games, but we got there, and I think it soon thereafter dawned on me, like, people aren't going to remember much of the games. I mean, people ask me all the time, "Do you remember anything?" I'm like, well, I remember some of the losses that I should have been better, but I don't remember a lot of the wins. But I do remember every player, and I think if you picked a name out from 30 years ago, could tell you everything about them. Was there a time for you? And I know we don't learn that right away, and we emphasize it to younger coaches. Was there a time for you that, hey, this isn't really, about wins and losses? Yeah, they're nice, and they erase a lot of problems, a lot of the time, but they also create some. But was there a time we went from, what, this is really, and you mentioned it earlier, it's really about the people. It's about the kids, turning them into men, better husbands, better fathers, better employees, all that stuff. Did that light ever come on for you at a certain time?
That's a great question. I can pinpoint the exact time it came on for me, and it was my second year of coaching at Lake Wales High School, and we had lost in the district tournament game. We had a good season, but we just ran into a very good ball club, and we lost. And I was really sad. I was more sad for the players than I was for myself. For one reason, I knew I was going to be going to Mississippi State the following year, but the players didn't know that yet. And I'd really developed a closeness with this team. And so I'm getting on the bus, and the players are getting on the bus, and I'm thinking about that. When am I going to tell these guys I'm not coming back? And we had this tradition on our team that, and I can't remember the goofy song they would sing, but when we would win, they would get on a bus and they would sing this goofy song, and and it was kind of a funny song. They all had a good time singing it, and it only happened when we won. So we get on the bus, and I'm at a loss for words, and I sit on the front seat, and we're leaving the parking lot. We get out on the main street between Winter Haven and Lake Wells, and these guys, it was very quiet, and then all of a sudden, one of the seniors started singing that song. And Tim, I have to confess to you, I'm sitting on the front seat. I've got tears rolling down my face because I know this is the last time I'm going to experience this. And so I'm just up there, just basking in it and thinking, man, I really love these guys. I'm really going to miss these guys. I started second guessing myself. Should I really go to Mississippi State, or should I stay here with these guys? Because most of these guys were sophomores and juniors. I had very few seniors. And so when we got back to Lake Wells, I announced to them, and it was hard. I had a lot of hugs and a lot of farewells. But that's when I realized that this is not about me loving baseball. This is about me loving the players who play baseball. And I've kept that with me ever since.
And you were blessed to have that happen early on, for sure. I don't think those guys in the 20s and even into their 30s sometimes don't realize that they walk around as if they invented the game. It's not about that.
Yeah.
It's not, we can X and O's with everybody, and everybody, the way they run the game is the way they run the game. But, it's just not that way. And, it's amazing the kids probably, and I'm sure you have this all the time, how they reach back out, might be 10 years, 15 years. That's when you've done a great job, and exactly why you are a Hall of Famer, Keith. Amazing. I wish I could have played for you. This game like in life is built on adversity, right? How we handle things, it's kind of like the straight lines concept a little bit. Had Chris Dennard on from Dugout Mugs, and he's like, it's about how fast you can change the tire and get back on track. And the better we keep our line straight, the more success we've got. But,
that's right.
But success is not a straight line. So it's dealt with adversity as much as baseball is, where I think baseball is players really become good employees because they deal with adversity. What's your thoughts on how players do that?
Yeah, I mean, we've all heard that Mike Tyson quote, it's great to have a plan until somebody punches you in the face. Yeah. Right. So, we all get punched, no matter what career you're in. I know you probably have some people listening in that are, that are part of a business or an organization outside of sports. And no matter what you do in life, you get punched in the face, and so you have to deal with that. And it's not an easy thing, but I think it wasn't until later on in my coaching career that I really learned that, it's those times of adversity that we grow. It's like pruning a tree. They grow healthier when they're pruned, and that's the way we are as human beings. That adversity is like pruning. It's painful at the time, but we learn and we grow from it. And so when players go through that adversity, those are the lessons we have to teach them. It doesn't always take immediately. You have to keep teaching and keep coaching, and you have to be persistent, and you have to be there. And if you can just be there for your players instead of turning your back on them because you don't know what to say, or maybe in some cases you really think, hey, they just need to get over it. Well, all we have to do is look back in our own playing careers and remember what it feels like to give up 4 earned runs in one inning, or to go for 0 for 14 in a stretch. I mean, those are tough times for a player because they're so passionate about the game and it means so much to them, and they feel like everybody in the world knows that they were 0 for 14 in the last 6 games or whatever. And really, nobody knows except maybe your teammates don't even know. The coach knows and the player knows. But I think just the player needs to know that the coach has their back. And if they know the coach has their back, that means a lot. And that helps them get through the adversity. And I was going to save this for later to talk about, but I think this is a perfect time to talk about it. The greatest gift I think we can give our players is to believe in them. And I can tell you right now, Tim, the coaches and managers that believed in me, and I can tell you the ones that didn't. And I promise you, the ones that believed in me, I performed better. The ones that didn't believe in me, my confidence was a little shaky. I hate to admit that, but it was. And the coach can't do it for you, but boy, if they believe in you, it means a lot. And I've told this story many times in talks I've given, but if you think about it, in a baseball game, and you're in the bottom of the ninth inning, and you're down by 1 run, and you got 2 outs, and there's men on second and third. A base hit wins the game, and out, you lose the game. If that hitter that's hitting believes that he's going to get a hit, the chances of him getting a hit go up. If the third base coach believes he's going to get a hit, it goes up a little bit more. If the guy on deck believes he's going to get a hit, it goes up a little bit more. The guys in the dugout believe it's going to go up even more. I don't understand that. I really don't, but I know it's true because I've seen it play out hundreds and hundreds of times.
It's human nature, I think, Keith.
Yeah.
It's human nature, and I think it's all this resonates across businesses and organizations. The same for your employees. They're going to perform better if you pat them on the back once in a while, or I call them verbal bouquets, right?
Yeah.
We all need verbal bouquets, all of us, and
I know I do.
Yeah, we all do. And I think, sometimes you seek them out. Most of the time, people that care will just present them to you. Visiting here with the great Keith Madison, having a wonderful time with him. In my book, Team Killers, every workplace and every team, there are unseen forces that can derail success. I uncover the behaviors, attitudes, and habits that destroy chemistry and show you how to build a winning culture instead. If you're a leader, coach, or teammate who wants lasting success, this book is in your playbook. Get your copy of Team Killers today and protect your team from the inside out. You can get that on Amazon. We're going to talk about Keith's book here, maybe in the next segment for sure, but we'll keep rolling along here. Some nuggets as usual. No surprise on my end. And we'll talk about culture in that Team Killers book. And I mentioned it's not what not to do that you learn. So I've always heard speakers and, hey, there's 5 ways to do this, 7 ways to do that, 48 ways to do that. How about you tell me what not to do, what to look out for? And I kind of went through one of our seasons and things that kind of rose to the forefront. I'm like, yeah, if I would have done that back there. And it's kind of what that book is about. So it really is talking about culture. And we talk about this chemistry thing, and you and I as coaches, like, I don't know about you. I knew it when I saw it. I wasn't quite sure how to do it. I wasn't sure how to mix that up and present chemistry. The culture is a little bit different. That's a much different thing than chemistry, I think. Your thoughts on, putting a culture together? You took over a program that wasn't a good job at Kentucky at the time and immediately won. How'd you do all that? How'd you pull that off?
Yeah, I've got a couple of thoughts about that. One, and I'd like to go back to what you said about team chemistry. And boy, you're dead on. I was the same way. I could recognize it. But we had back in the late '90s, sometime we had Brett Butler come in and speak to our team. I played minor league baseball with a guy named Doug Flynn, who played in the Big Red Machine and also played for the Mets, was a Gold Glove winner for the Mets. And he and Brett were good friends, and so he had come in to visit Doug, and Doug brought him over, and he spoke to our team. It was awesome. And so at the end of Brett's talk, one of my team captains said, Brett, how can we develop good team chemistry? And I loved Brett's answer. He said, win.
Exactly.
Yeah, he said every winning team I played on had great team chemistry, and the losing teams had bad team chemistry. Of course, that's I know Brett was over exaggerating, but there's a lot of truth to that. And
True.
how do you win? You practice well, you compete well, and when you win, people come together. But with the culture, as you said, it's a whole different animal. The culture, in my opinion, is our core values, and and I hate to use this word, but it's the best word I can think of right now. It's selling our core values to the team, to the players, and to the coaching staff, and to the parents of the players, and the boosters, and the administration. It's selling those core values and getting those players to buy in to what your values are. Um, and I don't know if I even thought about a program culture. It wasn't, at least in my world, it wasn't talked about until I got on up into my coaching years. But once I started thinking about it, and once I started hearing about it more, I realized that I'd been doing that all along. That
Exactly.
yeah, I had those values, and I tried my best to get the players to buy into those. And one thing I'll say for sure is when you can get your team to buy in and to embrace those core values that you want to be significant in your culture, it's going to be a fun year. It's going to be, you're going to have success. You might not win a national championship or a state championship, but it's going to be a really good year.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Keith. I know I'm the same way. If you figure out, you think about all this as a young coach and you're going in for an interview, you're going to have all your covenants and policies and guidelines and all that kind of stuff, which, people interviewing you for in the academic world are probably going to want to see and hear. And it dawned on me, and again, it's a matter of getting the kids believing and selling and having the team and the culture mean enough to you that you make a right decision when presented with, something you've got to figure
Yeah.
out. So I came down to really don't embarrass the ball club. And so anybody that would come and visit or talk to my players, what's Coach Neiman about? What's he got? They get, well, don't embarrass the ball club. And
Yeah.
again, that means to you as a player and the coaches, and I said the ball club's everybody, by the way. It's your parents, it's the alumni, it's boosters, it's whoever. That's the ball club. And if you embarrass it, there are repercussions or consequences.
Exactly.
And I'll decide on the severity of those. I'd rather not get pigeonholed into, some kind of a policy like, hey, you're suspended a week. Sometimes, there are circumstances that translate a little differently, but they all will do that, even to this day. Coach Nyman's, core value, and they're all wrapped up in that,
Yeah.
don't embarrass the ball club. And it's, what, it worked for decades. It was kind of a cool thing to do. I mean, of your core values then, Keith, any like no leeway, non-negotiable, anything that really, like you were emphatic about?
Yeah. Great effort. I wanted a great effort. And sometimes you can give a great effort and not win. But I'm not going to say it's okay because we all like to win, but I can live with that. If you give a great effort, if you give in to your opponent, that's not giving a great effort. So, I love the great effort. Another thing, Tim, is, don't miss class. We miss enough classes because we travel and all that. So I know a lot of classes are online these days and all that, but if there's a class attendance requirement, you need to be there. I know I'm going to expect it even if the professor doesn't have it. I want my players in class, and I want them sitting in the front row.
Yeah.
I want them paying attention. That's something that I really expected. Another one, I alluded to it earlier, is work ethic. Giving a great effort, work ethic, coachability. How will you how will you as a player get better unless me or a member of my staff can pour knowledge into you and teach you. If you're not teachable or coachable, then you're not going to get better. You probably get worse. So that's one. And here's another one. Embrace competitiveness. If you can't embrace competing against great teams and great players, you probably are not going to be a part of our culture. And that's why, if I saw two players playing and if I'm out recruiting or evaluating and the best player didn't give a good effort, or he didn't compete well at the plate, he didn't run things out, or just overall competitiveness. If he didn't show that to me, I'm taking that player that maybe doesn't have quite as much ability that's doing those things, because he's going to be there for you every day, and he's going to bring those values to your team every day. I remember I had a recruit in once. He was from West Virginia. He was a catcher. And he came in after his football game on a Friday night. And so my assistant coach met them and got them settled in the hotel and everything. And I met them for breakfast the next morning. And when this kid came to the table, I noticed he was limping a little bit and he was really stiff and sore. And I remember saying, Billy, it must have been a tough game last night. He said, yeah, coach, but I loved it. And I thought in my mind, I want this kid. I want him, because I could tell he was a competitor. He was a running back. He was hard nosed. I knew he was going to compete every at bat. And I just love those kind of kids. And, when you get to the college level, you got to have those kids. You just have to have those tough competitors in order to succeed. So yeah, those are the things that they're non-negotiables.
I think those are terrific, and I always fall back on Joe Consoli, who was a scout for the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I spent a couple years associate scout, if you will. But I learned so much from him, and one thing I never forgot in his Italian voice is, Timmy, after all the evaluation is done, make sure you find out what kind of a person he is.
Yes.
I never forgot that. Never forgot that. And I think that also holds true in every walk of life and every business, in every relationship. Find out what kind of a person. And of course, sometimes they fool you. We're human. Yep. That's happened. But I'll tell you, it served me very well. And it's describing, the kids that, and the qualities that you just described, that players came in and played. Those guys will outwork and they won't walk away. Again, right. Visiting here with Keith Madison. If you're enjoying Straight Lines and the conversations we are having, I would love you to bring that same energy to your organization. I speak to teams, conferences, schools, and groups about leadership, resilience, and living a life that will cast a large shadow. If you're looking for someone who connects, encourages, and inspires you with real-life stories that matter, I am available for your keynote and special events. Please reach out to me at CoachTimNeiman.com. I would be honored to serve your group. I wanted to get into this next little segment here, and it's the youth baseball landscape, Keith. And, I think like the NCAA these days, it's the wild, wild west. And, who is it that's going to embrace it, I guess, and corral it and lasso it and bring it in and actually make it matter? And it may be impossible in the youth baseball arena. The NCAA might be another. Somebody's got to step up here somewhere, because it's very unsustainable. What concerns you? What concerns you about youth baseball first? And maybe we talk a little NCAA as well, but youth baseball in general, all the travel stuff and the costs, and the economic impact of youth baseball is through the roof. And that's a good thing. That's okay. But it goes back to the guys that think they invented the game. A quick little story, and I told this once before. One of my assistant coaches is now at George Washington. He was out recruiting. I asked him how things are going. He goes, Coach, a lot of paint cans. What do you mean paint cans? He goes, the guys that go into Home Depot or Lowe's and they walk out and they're carrying a paint cans and their elbows are sticking out. I'm like, oh my God. Another thing I never forgot. Isn't that
That's
funny? And
good.
you just picture them.
I
There's
love
guys
that.
like that. And maybe
Yeah.
they mean it or they don't mean it. And maybe they're a victim of, the industry, but goodness gracious, you're not that. Be humble, teach
Yeah.
your players, give them a good experience and make them better people, both on and off the field. Your overall thoughts on youth baseball, Keith?
Well, one of my concerns my it's the number of kids that are eliminated early. Um, it's there's kids that peak at different levels, and I've seen guys at 11 years old. They look like they were going to be major leaguers, and they don't get a lot better. I've seen kids that barely make a team. They're skinny, they're small, but they love the game, and they don't make a lot of these teams. They don't get asked to play, and so then the rec league teams. I know in our area, I don't know about your area, but they're not nearly as good as they used to be because the travel teams are taking the good players and they're leaving a lot of kids, in the rec leagues, and they just can't put together enough teams sometimes. And so I hate eliminating kids when they're young from the game. I want them to play. I had a kid that made AAA in his third year out of college, and he wasn't even shaving. He was a late bloomer. And then I had another kid the same way. He was a late bloomer like that, and he ended up playing like 10 years in the big leagues. These days, he would not be there because he would have been eliminated when he was 14 years old because, you got the kids that are shaving at 13 and they're
Yep.
strong and
Yep.
they look great. But then they kind of stay the same. And then you have, like I mentioned earlier, these kids that maybe aren't as strong at that time and they're just peaking later and they just get eliminated from the game. So they play soccer or maybe they don't even play sports anymore. And it's very sad. So that discourages me to see kids eliminated because I want to see as many kids play baseball as can possibly play. I think it's a great game. And that doesn't mean every kid needs to play baseball. There's other sports. There's other activities that they can thrive in, which is great. But if you want to play baseball, I want to see that kid play as long as he can. And then the other thing that concerns me, and I want to say this by saying, there's a lot of positives about travel baseball that I could say. The tournaments and things where college coaches can see a lot of players in a short amount of time and all that. But the other concern I have is the way travel baseball is dominating a family. It's not just the kid; it's the entire family. If you go to these games, you'll see the little sisters and the whole family comes and they spend money on the hotel and the money on the food and the gas for their cars, or sometimes even flights on airplanes, and it can just be enormously expensive. Plus, if it's a family that enjoys going to church, or maybe they enjoy going to the lake occasionally, or they enjoy, um, you know, fishing or whatever people do, normal people, the whole family gets taken away from that. So you have kids that say, okay, well, man, church must not be very important because now we're not going. Baseball's more important, and that's just not a good situation, in my opinion. Uh, I've talked to two different people in the last 3 days who have talked about, hey, we want to establish a chapel situation in travel baseball so that families can enjoy that while they're competing.
On the road.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. I just talked to a guy from Louisville this morning, and day before yesterday, I talked to a guy in Nashville, and they both said, "Hey, we want to do this because, we realize we're taking families away from going to church. We're taking them away from other family activities, family reunions, all those kinds of things. So that's an adjustment that needs to be made. So those are the main concerns. But I think the ABCA a few years ago, thanks to Jim Schlossnagle and some of the other guys on our board, they're really the organization's beginning to embrace travel baseball because our focus in the ABCA is to help coaches to grow and to get better, whether it's high school, travel ball, college ball, whatever. We want to help coaches. And so we noticed that we didn't have any travel coaches in any of our leadership positions. So we're beginning to bring some of these good travel coaches, guys that have a good head on their shoulders, that really care about the kids and the families. We're bringing them into our organization because we want to be a part of that. We want to see travel baseball become better. I mean, what a lot of the idea a lot of people have is you got a kid with two brand new bats and a $300 glove, and his mom is bringing Gatorade to the dugout, and then after the game the mom's carrying the bag for him. That's kind of the image a lot of people have. Well, I think a lot of the travel coaches, they're just like you and I. They want to teach kids the right way to play the game, the right way to treat people. And we want to be a part, of their growing process. So I'm hoping that will catch on, and that you'll see. And one thing too, travel coaches don't have to worry about academics. They don't have to worry about, competing with another sport or anything like that. So I can see where high school baseball coaches especially can say, I'm trying to get guys to buy into the culture that I'm building at the school, and to have school pride, community pride, and the travel teams. They might, in Kentucky, there may be a kid from Louisville, there may be a kid from Lexington, there may be a kid from Bowling Green, there may be a kid from Cincinnati, from all over, and there's no program pride. It's just exposure. So I'd like for it to mean more than that. Every time you put on that uniform, you should be competing for someone other than yourself.
I love all that, Keith. I love the perspective. I love the chapel idea. That's a really good idea. I think, of course, I think they should ban 8 a.m. games or whatever else they roll out as well. My goodness. But you can always record it and watch the recording. But I think that's a tremendous idea. It's a hard, and I know the ABCA has really tried to turn up the dial a little bit, if you will, with travel and recognize them and organizing them and hearing them. Unfortunately, a little bit in the minority, right? Those guys that are trying to do it right, and I suppose are the guys that are carrying the paint cans, around.
Yeah.
So,
and there's some really good ones. There's some really good coaches out there.
And there are.
And then, like you said, I love that. There's a lot of paint can guys too.
It's unbelievable. Well, what can you and I do, and folks like us tell parents? I mean, what kind of message can we give to them? I think if they listen to this podcast, they're going to get a lot of advice and a lot of direction. But anything specifically that we can tell them to kind of get grounded in this whole situation?
Yeah, baseball is a phenomenal sport. This is what I would tell them. To me, it's the greatest sport there is, but it's not a god. And if you make it a god in your family, it's going to come to a bad end. It's, you're going to, that young person that's in that travel team, or that you're putting out there, and you're letting that one kid dominate the whole family, and all of a sudden he feels like a king and he's being catered to. That's not going to bode well for him when
No.
he gets out in what we call the real world, because he's going to have to learn how to be a team player.
Yeah, I'm
And
behind the eight ball a little bit as well, Keith.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
The
you
thing I
know,
love about high school baseball and college baseball is we really emphasize the team. And I think a lot of times in travel baseball, it's you're emphasizing a lot of individuals, not a cohesive team. And it's good to learn how to put the other person first, and
yes,
to put others ahead of yourself. And you used the word a few minutes ago, humility. And travel ball doesn't often. I know there's some great coaches out there that
no,
do, but often it doesn't teach humility and being a good teammate and all those kinds of things. So
it's
that's
bred.
that's what I would tell parents. To do.
It's
Don't
bred.
let it be the family god.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's bred some selfishness overall, and like you said, I mean, we're not here bashing. I think it's here to
No,
stay, and it's really good, and I think it's going to continue to grow and hopefully grow healthily. I think people have to know, the people involved in the game, coaches, parents, even the players, realize it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle for your future success as a human being.
that's right.
Baseball and any sport, really, it helps you learn so many different things. And one of the things I always like to say to my players is, it's amazing what we can accomplish if nobody cares who gets the credit. I think Harry Truman was
Yeah,
that, but that's
yeah,
true. And I
it's
think
so
that's
true.
true everywhere. So,
Yeah.
visiting again here with Keith Madison, who's created quite the legacy of his own. When the game is over, what will people remember about you? My book, What is Your Legacy, challenges leaders, athletes, and everyday people to think beyond the scoreboard. It's about purpose, impact, and the mark you leave on others. If you are ready to define your legacy and live it with intention, this book will guide the way. Get your copy of What is Your Legacy today and start shaping the story only you can tell. Again, you can visit the website too at coachtimneiman.com, and I'm proud of that book. It's doing really well, and it's a quick read too. You can pick it up and be done in a couple hours. Back with Keith, and I want to talk some of the other things that you're doing right now. Keith, you have a book as well going on, so I want you to go ahead and talk about that. And we're going to get into Score International. It's just something near and dear to you, I think, and your illustrious participation and leadership with the ABCA. So you can go in any order you'd like, but those three things, I think a lot of folks, including myself, would be very interested in hearing.
Yeah, I'll start with Score International, because it when we were talking about travel baseball, I was thinking about Score International, and I've told people many times that they play travel baseball in the Dominican Republic, but the way they travel is the kids walk about 3 miles to the ballpark, and sometimes without shoes and without a glove, and they play baseball. That's travel baseball down there. And I give this illustration often. And if you take the state of Kentucky and the state of Tennessee and you put them together, the population is about, I think, 11.5 million or maybe 12 million. That's about the same size population wise as the Dominican Republic. With all the college teams that we have and all the high school teams and all the travel teams we have in our two states, I think last year there were about 12 players that played Major League Baseball. In the Dominican Republic, there were about 120. So whatever they're doing there, they're doing it well. And I think one thing is the kids take responsibility of their own playing time, and they just find a field to play on, and they play all the time. They don't have to have a great uniform. They don't have to have two, $400 bats or whatever. They just, whatever they can grab, they play with, and they love the game. And so in a lot of ways, Tim, they're passing us by because they're playing because of the love for the game, and they're not they're playing without supervision. That's what I'm trying to say. They don't have to have supervision. They don't have to have parents or coaches there with them. They just go out and play. And so I think when the first trip I made to the Dominican Republic with Score International was as just a guest. And I got on one of those baseball fields and I saw the kids, how they love the game. And I saw the respect they had for the coaches and the Americans that came to the ballpark and the smiles the kids had on their faces. And I said, man, this is awesome. I want to be a part of this. And so I went back the next year at the same time of year. And finally, I was hanging around so much, they offered me a job. So
that's cool.
So I started, kind of representing Score International and being a part of their mission group. And we, besides the baseball stuff, like in November every year, we take a group of coaches and people who just love baseball, and we'll go down and we'll put on free baseball clinics for, 3,000 or 4,000 kids during the week. And then we also share faith, and we do humanitarian projects like we'll take food to villages and visit orphanages, and we've even planted churches down there. We do all that too. But boy, some really good stuff goes on the baseball field down there, and I love that part of it. I'm not traveling down there like I once did when I was a little bit younger. But we still have a vibrant mission where we are using baseball, which is the thing they love most in the Dominican Republic. And we're using that to help these young guys not only become better baseball players, but to become better people and to maybe grow in their faith.
Before we go to the next part, Keith, the 3 years we went there, to me, the word that pops in my mind all the time is the sheer joy.
Yeah.
Just the joy. Yeah. I mean, hitting bottle caps with broom handles, and they're really good at it too. Fahelia or something like that, it's called. Something like that. They're really good at it. And we would always bring equipment and uniforms and T-shirts and, whatever we could give them, we would. But the one aspect that is, if you ask any of our players, what do you remember the most, was visiting the orphanage. We did that and spent hours there at San Pedro de Margary down that's neck like of the woods.
Baseball capital of the world. Not many town squares have a statue or a monument of a baseball player in the middle. It's
exactly.
It's pretty cool.
It was so memorable, and I think one of the stories that stuck out to me was the first time we were there. They said, "Look, they have visitation." I wanted to say might be once a month. It might have been more frequent. Was not once a week, but the kids would line up at the gate hoping a family member would, be there to visit with them. And just the image of the kids that were there that have not had anybody show up just moved me. I mean, I can't imagine. Right. Yeah. Breaks my heart. Couldn't believe it. So the more we made a financial donation and everything, it was, I highly recommend if you can get there, whether it's with Score or any other organization that does it. There's a few that do it really well.
And but if you're a coach or a leader out there and you'd like to put together a group to go down there and help those kids, feel free to contact me at my website, coachkeithmadison.com.
Perfect. Talk a little bit about the ABCA, Keith, and it's important work and continues to be so. And obviously the biggest baseball organization of any kind in the world. And what a wonderful job they do. Convention coming up soon, right? Next week in Columbus, Ohio. So your thoughts on the ABCA and all the great work that you did, and your leadership, was probably not matched, or maybe never will be, but there's always a lot of great guys leading the way.
Oh, I mean, some of the greatest guys I've ever met have been a part of that organization. And as I was able to go through the executive committee and become the president of the organization. And then after that, I became a lifetime board member. Just some of the greatest guys, like Bob Bennett from Fresno State. He's not with us anymore. He's in a better place. But just one of the great guys, Charlie Green from that used to coach at Miami-Dade South, Jerry Kendall from Arizona, and Mark Johnson from A&M, and just on and on. Just some wonderful people, and now we have a great group of guys on our board. Dan McDonald from Louisville, Jim Schlossnagle from Texas, University of Texas. Rich Maloney from Ball State. Just a lot of good guys from NAIA schools, Division III, Division II, Division I. We have 2 or 3 high school representatives and 1 travel coach on our board now. So it's a great board, and it's a great organization to be a part of. And I have learned so much. Back before I got involved in the leadership, I was just one of those guys that would go and take notes like crazy, when different speakers spoke. And then I still remember, meeting Ron Polk there. And I remember Augie Garrido being in the lobby of the hotel, and he had 3 or 4 coaches that I knew around him just talking baseball. And I thought, man, I'm going to sneak in there since I know these other guys and see what Augie has to say, because I knew he was a great coach. And, within 30 minutes, I felt like he was my best friend. So, it's just baseball coaches are generally really good people to hang out with.
No doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. I want to hit your book too. We'll save that towards the end. I think it'd be good. If you had a piece of advice for a young coach, the 25, 26-year-old Keith Madison, that's coming along, and they're all out there, and it's such a hard trek for them, a hard journey for them to get started and move along. What would you say to those guys at this point, given, the climate and hopefully their yearning and their joy of the game and trying to advance up to being a head coach or being some kind of a leader?
Yeah, absolutely. No matter how much you think make it your job to gain knowledge, seek wisdom, and love your players. I think if you do those 3 things, you're going to be really successful. Gain knowledge, seek wisdom, and love your players.
I think that's a good trifecta for people to write down and, paste it up somewhere. I think you're absolutely right. When former players think of Keith Madison, what do you hope that they say?
Hopefully not early morning workouts.
We all did those.
I hope they say, I know Coach really cared about me, and he still cares about me. And, when we get together at reunions and I hear from these guys, and thankfully I hear from them a lot. That's a blessing to be able to hear from your former players. We talk about sweeping LSU, or we talk about, the bus breaking down on what's the name of that mountain just across the line in Tennessee, Jellicoe Mountain, I think. But mainly we talk about other players. We talk about the players, and we get caught up on what they're doing in their life and the funny stories and the good times that we had. It's just, I always laugh, when I get together with guys, because they always remember, goofy things I did and goofy things that they did and their teammates did. You can build some great memories being a part of a baseball team. And I hope they remember, I just hope they remember a coach that really loved them and cared for them and always had their back.
I'm sure they do, Coach. I'm sure they do. So, name of the show is Straight Lines. I think you kind of got the gist of it all. What does it mean, Straight Lines mean to Keith Madison?
When I first saw the title of your podcast, I couldn't help but think about me being on my zero turn mower, trying to make those lines as straight as I can out there when I'm mowing, because I love that. I still love the good looking straight lines on the field. But, when I think of that, I think of me trying to get from point A to point B in a straight line, because that's a true line and it's the most direct line, but also see myself in my life sort of like the chart you see with the stock market. It goes up, it goes down, it goes up, but it seems like in most years it always goes up a little higher than it did the year before. That's what I want to be. I want to be able to get to that line, or to get to from point A to point B in that straight line as straight as I can. But I know I'm going to mess up. I have messed up. I'm I've made a lot of mistakes, but when we learn from our mistakes, that's when the line gets a little straighter. So
That's exactly right.
that's
That's
kind of what
exactly
I'm
right.
doing. Yeah,
That's great. That's exactly right. It's the purpose, to try to, you know, keep the train on the tracks if you can, knowing that we're going to have a breakdown once in a while. And maybe more often than normal. I mean, the good Lord throws a lot of curveballs at us,
no doubt,
and
no doubt.
sometimes we take them. Sometimes they're a strike. Sometimes we got to foul them off,
Yeah,
but we're still in a box, still competing and battling.
yeah,
Tell us a little bit about your book and how folks can get a hold of you again. I know you mentioned a website, but if that's the
yeah,
best way, please tell us again. And
yeah.
I want to hear about your book too.
Yeah, the name of the book is Coaching with Purpose, and it's the book. It's about a lot of the things that we've talked about here, Coach. Really, I mean, it's been it was a labor of love writing it, but it's got a lot of my coaching and leadership philosophy in it. But it also, I think, has a lot of valuable coaching info in there about communicating with your players, about building a culture that you can be proud of. And the main theme, I would say, of the book, if I could summarize it, would be, uh, we coach baseball players, we don't coach baseball. We think we coach a game, but really we coach players. And if we can learn how to connect with those players, then we're going to be able to pour value into them, and they're going to be able to grow as players and as people, and become better husbands, better fathers, better citizens, and make a positive mark on the world. And it's when I started thinking about that, Tim, the influence that coaches have on players, it's amazing. When I was 15 years old, I had a wonderful father. I really did. And he taught me the right things, but I didn't listen to him very often. I hate to admit that.
It's
When I
amazing how
was,
smart he was probably
yeah,
10 years later, right?
no
That's
doubt.
how it's the case
Yeah,
with everybody. Yep.
yeah. And, when I was 14, 15, 16, I didn't listen to him, but boy, I listened to my coaches. And that tells you the influence coaches have. So if we want to make our country a better place to live in, if we want to make our communities a better place to live in, if we want if we want our players to have healthy marriages and be good fathers, then we need to take advantage of the time that we have with them. Absolutely teach them how to play the game, how to compete, how to win, but also teach them how to act, and give them some guidelines and give them some life lessons. And the main thing, not that I've done it perfectly, but we've got to walk the talk as coaches. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and we it's good for us to have it's like I said earlier, I have those values that I have for the culture. But if I don't live those values, the players aren't going to buy in.
They're meaningless,
That's
right?
right. So we
They're
have to,
meaningless.
as hard as it is, we have to set the tone. And
Always do. We're
yeah,
setting an example every day, Keith. You
yeah,
really, and as we've all told our players and, you know, children and anybody else, you never know who's watching. You never know
exactly.
who's watching.
If
And
we're if
that
we're
is,
yeah, if we're not authentic and transparent, the players can see right through that every time.
it's KeithMadison.com, right? That's where we can
CoachKeithMadison.com.
Coach Keith Madison. Very good. Coach
Yeah.
KeithMadison.com. Definitely visit that and get that. If you're not sure, get a hold of me. I'll make sure we pass that along. Thank you for joining me on Straight Lines, where leadership lessons meet the game of life. If you enjoyed today's show, share it with your friends and colleagues. Subscribe and connect with me on social media for more insights. And if you want to dive deeper, check out my 2 books, What is Your Legacy and Team Killers. Please visit CoachTimNeiman.com and check out our YouTube channel at the Neiman Legacy Network. Until next time, lead with clarity, play with purpose, and keep those lines straight. Coach Keith Madison, I can't thank you enough. It was a true pleasure and an honor to be with you today. Thank you, sir.
Tim, I loved it. I loved talking baseball with you and talking life with you.
Thank you.